Scott, I feel bad for Xbox fans as Sony has secured the Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy as a console exclusive. Sorry. Man, it's just
that answers that question.
doesn't it? Tom Ivan over at VGC. That's according to the new Washington Post report, which appears to confirm what had perhaps been widely assumed, but not confirmed until now. While the finer details of the exclusivity arrangement haven't been publicly disclosed, the report seemingly extinguishes hopes of the trilogy coming to Xbox in the near future, at least. Quote, securing the Final Fantasy VII trilogy as a console exclusive is a feather in the PlayStation cap. End quote. It reads, Final Fantasy VII Remake was released on PlayStation 4 back in April of 2020, Scott. 4 years ago. And upgraded version of the game, Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, arrived for PlayStation 5 in June 2021 before hitting PC 6 months later. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was released last week for PlayStation 5. If you haven't checked out our review, make sure you check that out over at itgtv.com or our YouTube channel Inside the Game Official. And we will be exclusive to Sony's consoles for at least 3 months, meaning it's possible PC players might have a relatively short wait to play the sequel, which isn't coming to PlayStation 4. Dude, there's no way that'll run on PlayStation 4. I mean, you know, you see like the degraded games.
Oh yeah, the demakes.
Yeah, that's what you would get. Like, that's not what something you want when it comes to Final Fantasy, especially in Rebirth. Dude, the game is massive. There's no way that's gonna work over on a PlayStation 4. This was PlayStation 5 intended when they were getting out a Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? So here we go. Christian Svensson, Vice President of Second and Third Party Content Ventures and Strategic Initiatives at Sony Interactive Entertainment, reportedly told the Washington Post that the console exclusivity was mutually desired when their remake project got going. Quote, back in the same console generation for the original PlayStation, Sony Computer Entertainment had few franchises of its own, and in order to find its place in the very competitive video game industry, we sought to win the hearts and minds of key third-party developers like Square, end quote, he said. The focus on securing third-party deals is, quote, ingrained in our DNA to this day, end quote, he added, it, quote, and connects directly to how we've worked together with the Final Fantasy Rebirth, end quote. Quote, Final Fantasy has always been one of the primary franchise pillars on PlayStation consoles, end quote, Svensson said, according to the Square Enix is, adding that Square Enix is, quote, one of the best in the business at pushing beyond their fans' lofty expectations and showing off what can be done with PlayStation hardware, end quote. Elsewhere in the article, Square Enix discussed the benefits of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth console exclusivity, quote, had it not been on a single platform, the world would not be seamless, and game design may have had to regress significantly, end quote. Final Fantasy franchise producer Yoshinori Katiz had said that one, Scott. Interesting that they do. This is what we often talk about, right? When it comes to first-party studios, that allows them to focus on one platform and not have to go multi-platform, which then puts the team on a different trajectory when it comes to designing the game, right? What are the requirements for PC? Man, there's not one PC out there that is the same, right? So all of a sudden, like, your specs are like just a wall of spaghetti. And then you get on the console side, that's another, granted, PlayStation, Xbox, closer now than they've ever been, but it's still another platform to worry about. Here, Final Fantasy VII can just, the remake, the rebirth, everything can focus on one platform, but PlayStation's done it right, because when you take a PlayStation, you take a look at their lineup this year, dude, it's all second-party, third-party content, because they don't have any first-party exclusives coming their way.
No, it does make sense that way, but it's really something that we've seen it push towards PlayStation 5 as well, and I think this is important to that endeavor to keep it just on PlayStation, because that PS5 version of it really does push to the next gen, the current gen, whatever you want to call it, and leave PlayStation 4 behind. And we need to do that. I think that's more important than putting games on every console.
Yeah, it's an interesting lineup though, right? Where we see Phil Spencer right now talking about trying to branch out as much as possible. But again, when you take a look at the console sales, console war, essentially, PlayStation outsells Xbox. So Xbox is like, we just need our games on more platforms because we are lower down the tier when it comes to the home console, right? Who has a PlayStation over an Xbox? A lot of people do. It's funny. I'm fortunate to have both. You have an Xbox, right? Steve has a PlayStation Xbox. Corey has an Xbox. You know, I got friends that have PlayStation Xbox, but not everybody is able to get both, right? Things just that ever since last year or last generation, everybody's transitioned over to PlayStation, and that's what they're using moving forward. So to free up the resources and focus on one platform, have PlayStation come in and go, hey, you know, we're in for a light year. We need to land some of these exclusives. Final Fantasy has been a PlayStation, but it feels almost like a first-party game, right? Like that's how Final Fantasy is kind of overseen within the industry, within fans alone. You would almost think Square was a first-party studio.
You would, especially until the modern era. I remember, and I've played Final Fantasy 15 on my Xbox, however, and then we did learn, and now we've seen Final Fantasy 14 come across to Xbox. So it kind of seemed like Xbox was making inroads, but just not exactly for Final Fantasy 7. Not where it counts, perhaps, with some.
Well, they lost 16.
I'm still hoping for 16.
I don't think you get it.
Now.
I don't think you get it, right? I think Square's like, no, we're going to stick with the titles moving forward over on PlayStation. Obviously, all the remake, the trilogy there is going to be exclusive to PlayStation, to the console. So if you have a PC, there's your opportunity to play Final Fantasy games if you don't have a PlayStation 5. It's just, dude, money talks, right? That's the other side of it as well, is that money talks, and PlayStation is coming to the table for Square and have it in the past, and that will continue in the future. Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 trilogy, exclusive console-wise, at least for PlayStation.